we're going to look at unit rates. And unit rates, when we're talking about unit, is they're actually specifically talking about the number 1 when we talk about unit rates. What they're talking about is reducing a relationship so that one of the numbers in the relationship is at a value of 1, which is an odd definition, okay? But it's sometimes easier to think of, especially if we're talking about traveling. So let's say we're traveling with a car, and this car has traveled 384 kilometers in 4 hours. Okay? A lot of times a question will ask you, what is the unit rate? But they should be a little more specific. What is the unit rate? Okay? And I'm going to expand on this because that's not specific. I can technically find 2 different unit rates here. What is the unit rate in kilometers per hour? So that slash usually means per hour. Okay? So when they say that, I want you to think of this like fractions, because we need to get good with fractions as we go through this. This is kilometers over hours. And when they're asking for a unit rate like that, that means we're going to have kilometers above hours. The unit rate is the value at the bottom. In other words, we want the hours to be a unit of 1, okay, when they word it that rate. I could also word this question, I'll write it in green, in hours per kilometer, which we don't normally talk about, but if I were to word it that way, move this over, I'll have a shadow, then we'd be looking at hours over kilometers, and our unit rate would be kilometers. We'd have to turn kilometers into the value of 1 in this question. Okay? So from there, what we're going to do is we'll do the first one, or kilometers per hour, and then we'll talk about how we could also find a different type of unit rate. So if that's the case, because I've already set up the units, I need my kilometers on top. Really got to fix that. So our kilometers in this question are 384, and we'll do it in red. So they've traveled 384 kilometers in how many hours? 4. In 4 hours. Okay? So what we're going to need to do here is this is specifically setting us up for a division question. What we need to do in this question is what fractions mean is we need to divide these values. Okay? So if you're unsure how to set this up as a division question, then you can think of it like this. I need to get the number 4 to be the value of what? 1, because I need to put it as a unit rate. What would I divide 4 by to make it a value of 1? Logan? 4, that's right. And when we're working with fractions, whatever we do to the top of a fraction, we must do to the bottom and vice versa. So I'm going to divide the bottom of this fraction by 4 and the top of this fraction by 4 so that it still stays an equivalent fraction. So we know on the bottom, 4 divided by 4 is, well, 1. So that'll be in hours. But what we have to figure out is 384 divided by 4. Anybody have a calculator? 86? 96. I think it's a little different. I think it ends up being 87, but I want you guys to double check. I switch the numbers? Let's pause this. How do we do it? Okay, so your book has an error. When we divide these values, 4 goes into 38 6 times at 36, which leaves me with a 2. 2 makes us 24. 4 into 24 is 6. That leaves me at 96. Okay. So what this means is this car was traveling at 96 kilometers an hour. That's the unit rate there. But what if we wanted to find the other unit rate, which sounds odd, but we're going to try to make sense of it. We're going to set the question up the other way. Okay? This will be a little harder. You're going to probably need a calculator for this one. Let's set it up again. We said that we wanted the unit rate to be in kilometers. So in other words, we have our hours on top and kilometers on the bottom. Well, we already have our values, so we're going to have 4 hours divided by 384 kilometers. Same idea. I need kilometers to be a value of 1. So what would I divide 384 by to get the value of 1? Somebody's saying it, they're just not saying it loud. 384. That's right. You just divide by itself. So we're going to divide this value by 384, and that'll take us to 1. And whatever we do to the bottom of a fraction, we must do the top. So we have to divide 4 by 384. Not a simple task to do in mental math. So, I think I have a small calculator on this thing here. I'll bring it up so we can see it in the video, okay? So we have the value of 4 divided by 384. Gives us 0.0104 is good enough. Okay, we'll go to 4 decimal places. So 0.0104 hours over 1 kilometer. What the heck does that mean? That's right, it's going to be in minutes, right? And in order to convert this to a value that we understand, what this saying is, it's going to be about 0.01 hours. Well, that doesn't compute to us because we usually work with hours in the value of 1, so we need to convert it to minutes, okay? So if we multiply this value by 60, we can figure out how many minutes it is. How many minutes is it? Anyone know? Let's take it. We'll take this value and we multiply by 60.6. We're still not even there. Okay? So what this is saying is your car in 0.6 of a minute. Who can estimate what 0.6 of a minute is? What's it around? What would 0.5 of a minute be? 30 seconds, right? So this is probably a little longer than 30 seconds. So what this is saying to us, because we want to always make sense of what we're doing, is this car, in a little over 30 seconds, can travel a kilometer at the speed it was going. Okay? Remember, it was going 96 kilometers an hour. Now, the green part isn't as important. It is a little confusing, but it's important that we make sense of things. The first one, the unit rate, we converted it to 1 hour, and it was going 96 kilometers an hour. And if we'd done vice versa, okay, it's going 0.01 hours per kilometer. So in other words, about maybe 36 seconds it takes to travel 1 kilometer. Okay? Important to make sense of what we're doing. I really need you to understand the first part of this, just this process here of changing.